NACN.
Beneath the surface.
Well, once again, thank you for joining me with us. First question
You're
is,
welcome.
what's it mean to be a councillor? Like, what's your day-to-day life like?
Okay, so it's actually one of the things I like about it is the variety, because there's never really 2 days the same. There's consistency with regards to the meetings that you have to attend, the council meetings, you know, the monthly and sort of fortnightly meetings, they're consistent. But in terms of constituency work, that varies on a day-to-day basis. One day it can be dealing with simple things like maybe a street light out or a pothole, and in other days you can be dealing with a lot of things you deal with as housing issues, you know, people needing a house or needing repair work done. So even though people don't realise, housing actually doesn't fall under local council, it's still under the assembly. But as a local councillor, you're usually the first point of contact for people to get help. And so if you can, you try and help them, and where you can't, you pass them maybe on to the local MLA. So, yeah.
Well, my next question is, what made you become a local representative?
So I was a pastor in a church for 11 years in Rathcoole. And during my role there, I would have been quite involved in a lot of different community work and working with local groups. And I was actually approached by some people in the DUP and asked if I would consider standing in the forthcoming council election. That was in 2014. And so I gave it a bit of thought, and I felt, okay, well, I'll put my name forward and we'll see whether the public think this is a good idea or not. And I was fortunate enough to be elected in 2014.
Mm-hmm. Well, I said when what's it meant to be a councillor, you said you deal with a lot of people, you know, with housing issues. Do you currently know the number of those on the housing waiting list in your area?
I don't, because it changes all the time. I know it's very high. I know there's not enough houses for the people that need them. I'm currently working on a number of cases. One of them actually is quite a complex needs case. So part of the problem is that the housing executive don't always have the appropriate stock for the need that there is. They can have houses available, but if it's somebody who needs ground floor or 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom, I'm finding that there's really not enough of that type of property available for it, you know.
With them not finding the property available, what do you have to say towards the demolition plans to the high-rise flats? I'm
really disappointed about the Monkscool house being demolished. I've grew up in Rathcoole all my life. The multis are iconic for us. We've known them. They're the place that when you've been away for a while and you're coming home and you're driving down the motorway and you see the 4 multis, you say, I'm nearly home, you know. So to think that one of those might be gone it's hard to accept. That this is a tower block strategy that the Northern Ireland Housing Executive have produced. They're saying that they want to move away from tower blocks across the whole of Northern Ireland, because in the analysis that they have done, they believe that they're too expensive to maintain them. And so their argument is that rather than pouring more money into a failing project, they want to demolish the block and then build on that site. Obviously, you won't get as many houses on that site as the multi would hold in itself. The flip side of that, or the counter argument to that, is that for the last number of years, that block particularly has housed very little, if any, in fact nobody recently, because it's not up to a suitable standard. And therefore, is it better that it's demolished to have some housing in its place as opposed to leaving it empty? That's one argument. But I also am concerned that it is the first one that seems to be coming down when there's plenty of other tower blocks around, and I haven't heard any demolition program coming forward for them. So there's questions to be asked as to why is it they're starting here. My preference would be that they would be renovated and maintained and allow people to move into them and kept. And that's what we're campaigning for and arguing. There's a petition around you can sign, and I've signed the petition to say that we don't want the tower block to come down.
Out of the list that are a bunch of tower blocks that are to be demolished within a 5-year period, like minimum, Monk's is one of them. And is it even possible for this asset to be saved? Like, how would they go about doing that?
Well, I think anything's possible when people get together and make their voice heard. It's difficult because it's gone so far on the basis that I think we're now at the stage where the tender is out for the demolition team to come in, and the political will would need to be there to overturn a decision like that, and that would need to be at a very high level. As I said to you earlier, James, housing and the likes of the multis really falls under the role of the Assembly. So it would be a case of lobbying your local MLA and getting them to make the case through the Department of Infrastructure and the different departments in the Assembly to challenge that or to try and overturn it.
Well, with these buildings having with the high-rise flats, they have bed sits like single people can get in. How are single individuals supposed to find easy and affordable housing just for one person?
As I said earlier, James, that's a problem I'm encountering. The housing executive stock doesn't always have suitable property types for the need that there is. So that can be somebody needing a single bedroom accommodation and we're about to knock down a block full of them. Or it could be a family needing a 4-bedroom house because of the number of children. There just are not any of them really about. I think one of the ways that this, for me, the current one I'm finding is there's not enough bungalows available for those with complex needs or disability needs. And one of the reasons I think that we got to that stage is because a lot of people over the years who were in housing executive properties then had the opportunity to buy them, particularly bungalows. And I can think of areas where there's a number of ideal properties for people who need them. But those properties are now privately owned, and so it has reduced the housing executive stock and ability to offer it. We now have housing associations building properties, and we welcome that, and there's plenty of developments coming that is good to see. However, the housing executive themselves, I think it would be good to see them getting back to building properties again too. That would be one way to try and help address it, but it's going to be a longer term resolution. It's not a quick fix.
Well, their plans is to build social housing to replace the high-rise flats. Can you see there being any, way of moving those in the flats into those housing, so they're not just being displaced out of Rathco?
Well, I think the argument has been made that those who are within the block should get first priority in terms of being relocated into the area. The difficulty is there's going to be a period of time between the block coming down and the new houses going up, and where do they go in the meantime? They'll have to be relocated even on a temporary basis, whether it's a year or 2 years, and so it's when they get relocated, are they still wanting to move again, or do they not want the upheaval of having to move twice? So that's really an issue for those local residents, but we certainly should be making a case that their wishes should be kept with regards to being able to stay within the area of their choice.
Have you done anything to speak and hear the voices of the local residents about the issues?
Well, I've met with a number of them. I met with some of the residents in the actual block where they live. It's been a good while ago now, whenever they were writing initially to campaign against it. As I say, I've signed the petition and I've went to the relevant meetings. I was at the meeting with Clark Daly, who was the head of the housing executive. He's now since left. When we were officially told the actual tower block strategy, and it was explained to us that this was going to be the case over the next number of years, why they were bringing them down across the whole of Northern Ireland and what their plans was to put in place instead of it. So yeah, and our party, I think, have been quite involved in it too, at an MLA level, as I say, in the assembly. You know, so yeah, we do keep in contact with the residents when they contact us. So.
That's good. What do you think that this might how do you think this might affect the image of you and your party for the next election? By doing all this?
By doing what? Sorry, by how might what affect?
Getting involved about the issues.
I think. Well, I would be confident enough that the next election is an assembly election, and so I would be confident enough that for this area, our MLA is Paula Bradley, and I would be confident enough that Paula is aware of the issue and is aware of the people on the ground, their feelings, and is doing what she can about it. I would like to think that people would feel that they have the party's support and therefore would support the party coming into an election. That the difficulty is in our type of government is that we're a 5-party coalition. So unfortunately, you don't always get things the way you want them, and there has to be that compromise. That's why I made the point to you earlier that for a decision like this to be overturned, you know, it's not possible for the DUP single-handedly to do that. They need to get the cooperation of other parties.
Is there anything you feel like not only yourself but other councillors could do to get more in touch with locals and try and, you know, talk
about this issue specifically?
Yeah.
About this issue specifically? Because it's been very difficult because of the pandemic. I think in normal circumstances there would have been more public type meetings that would have been held where people could have came along and asked questions. I know Dee had one at a time down in his place, and we were at it when residents were there, and that type of thing I think it can be helpful and allow people to see face to face and to ask questions. It's been difficult in this climate, however, now that we're coming out of that, you know, hopefully by the next month or two we'll see progress coming out of that might allow that type of meeting to take place again.
Yeah, well, that's me with my questions. Thank you for answering them.
No problem, James. It's been good to talk to you, and I wish you all the best in your studies for the future.
Thank you.
Hey, young man, take care.
NACN. Beneath the surface.